Hey guys. Mom life, I'm telling you. I know I'm starting the live like a minute late. I hate being late, but things I'm learning as a mom. Um, Welcome everyone. It's Infertility Awareness Month, and it's also the weekend of Juneteenth and Father's Day. So this is an exciting time. Listen, y'all, you know what's really blowing my mind, everybody? Listen, I am my soul is so happy. I am happy for Uniquely Ursi. I am happy for Simply Tanika that she has her baby boy. What a journey, guys. What a journey. I mean, oh my goodness. I'm so happy for her. I've told you guys often on my channel that I love Tanika. Her spirit, her tenacity. I call her like her New York City vibe. She's like the Carrie Bradshaw of infertility, Oprah of infertility. And listen, y'all, if you have been trying with your own eggs, Tanika, I mean, her older videos of how she just when I tell you, I used to watch her videos and I drive to the clinic because sometimes when you want to try your best, you're aware of your choices, but you want to try your best. It's still hard when you're going through this journey. And so Simply Tanika is amazing. And she did double donor IVF, and she's now earthside with her beautiful baby boy. So that's June National Infertility Month, guys. Isn't that amazing? And yeah, and then the other good news. So I said, Uniquely Ursi has her baby, which is amazing, and so happy for her at the age of 50, being a first-time mom. I can't even imagine. Actually, I can't, because my baby at 45, and it's just the joy that these babies give in your heart. It's absolutely amazing. Yeah, I think there's a few of you out there. How you guys doing? If you want to just let me know in the chat how you guys are doing before we get into today's conversation. So if you are new to this, I decided to just go live during Infertility Month and kind of engage in conversations about things I learned, because this space was really helpful for me when I was undergoing my own journey. And I was a silent watcher. And that meant that I would watch the videos and I'd have my fertility journal and I'd write notes. And it really is because of the experiences of women in this space, the failures, the ups and downs, that I really got my strength. And so, when my journey ended up being successful, I went through 12 cycles of IVF. I knew that I needed to hop into this space, because there could be somebody somewhere, even if it's just one person, who just needs the motivation to process, to continue, to relanguage themselves. Because it's a tough journey. It's a tough journey, guys. It's a tough journey. And so I hope that as you watch my videos, I do have playlists of my entire journey, all 12 mini IVF cycles documented for you. So there's a playlist on my channel. I also did do a conventional IVF, because obviously, we all start with the conventional. Most doctors in the country do conventional IVF. And at the time, I didn't know about the different types of IVF. And so yeah. But in other news, I mean, it's amazing, because this morning when I got up, after, touching base with my son is actually asleep right now. You can kind of see him in the monitor. Look at that. Look how big he is now. Oh, my baby, my lovely phobia, my phobia. The embryo that could. Frozen for a year. And he thawed. And I remember when he thawed, I remember, because I had done so much research and I was very versed with, what happens during IVF. I remember telling my doctor, Dr. Frank Yelian of the Life IVF Center, I said, Dr. Yelian, I said, it's hatching. Because, my fear was, because there's this thing in my head. I thought if it was hatching, then it would latch on in the, when it was transferred. And and it's a chance, it's supposed to show that it's successful. And so when it was hatching, I was like, oh my gosh, it's hatching. And it's like, my doctor just looked at me like, how do I know? You know all the terminology. I was like, yep. Yeah, research your doctors, research the process. Anytime you go and get a diagnosis, listen, go and do your work. But in other news today, this morning, I digress. I found out that Kourtney Kardashian is pregnant with her and Travis Barker. They have a baby. And you guys know, listen, I love the Kardashians anyway. I watched them when, when Caitlyn was going by the name of Bruce at the time. I watched that whole journey when they were family. But, one of the things I love about the sisters is their openness, particularly Khloe Kardashian, the three sisters in particular who underwent infertility in different ways. So Kim, because Kim, today we're going to talk about the different ways to get a baby, and Kim in particular, being so open about her surrogacy journey. And so, just being open about how she found out that she couldn't carry. And there are some people who have that infertility. We'll talk about that today and the options, but I know that Kim was very open about that. Khloe in particular was very, very open. And Khloe's story, I think, is interesting because it touches on relationships and women of advanced age, us. What happens, I mean, if you're watching this live and you happen to be a woman who is, you are of advanced age, maybe over, geriatric, as they say it, over 35, or of advanced maternal age, 40, you haven't met the right person, or you're with the right person and they're not acting up. And I love that she portrays some real conversations, her and actually another YouTuber called Fruitful, because Fruitful also, just like Khloe Kardashian, they all had frozen embryos, and then the relationship ended up not working out. You guys know with Tristan Thompson, he ended up with a baby with somebody else, and at the same time as they had frozen embryos, and Khloe, I guess, was using a surrogate. And so it was that weird thing of people are like, oh, Khloe's having a baby with Tristan and he just cheated on her and had a baby with another woman. And, people don't know, right? Because infertility is not something that people talk about. But, these are the things, when you get these embryos and you freeze them, relationships evolve. I know with Fruitful, they ended up actually deciding that they were going to, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, not use the embryos. And so, yeah, these are real conversations. But the sisters I know have always been open. And then Kourtney also open about her journey, semblance of it. I mean, obviously, we don't know all the facts, but I know that Kourtney said that she froze her eggs. And you guys have heard that it is actually, when we talk about infertility and freezing of eggs, sometimes it's preferred to actually freeze embryos because it's stronger when it's an embryo as opposed to an egg. But also Kourtney was of advanced maternal age. When you're older, your eggs are older, so they're not as strong. They don't have the mitochondria the way the younger women have. There's the energy, the eggs' energy. So yeah. So happy for Kourtney. I remember just thinking, I said, she went through multiple IVF cycles. Her eggs didn't work. And she met the love of her life. And I know, guys, I have so many friends, myself too. I mean, I was of advanced maternal age when I met Ricky. I was 41 when we got married. It's just very real. And then, like for Kourtney, she had other children. But that's the thing. It's like when you meet the love of your life, you want to be able to have a child with them. And these are the things that women are thinking about. And so happy for Kourtney. Yeah. I was on the comments actually, and I was just looking at my phone, but I was on the comments, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they shared Kourtney's news. on People. I was on People, and yeah, and I was kind of, sharing, and this post has gotten so many likes. People were just asking about 700 likes so far, 739. And what I commented in the People post was, "Oh my God, this is amazing news. Nothing like being a parent after infertility." And talk about the 12 cycles, getting my baby at 45, and people just commenting. And there's a lot of support out there because, but it's amazing. For the most part, everybody being positive. But you know what's interesting, guys? There was actually a comment. It's just, and I have to respond to some of these because you just never know. They might have a sister, they might have a brother, they might have an uncle, a niece, they might have a family member, a best friend who's going through infertility. So this is my way of giving back. So I think I'm going to actually go back to these comments. Yeah. Oh no, there's a woman who actually commented here. She said, "I failed one cycle and it was already tough. Then COVID happened, so we put it on hold." Oh, there's women who are also going through infertility that commented on this post for Kourtney Kardashian. Oh, wow. So after this live, I'm actually going to I'm scrolling through comments here, and there's people who are going through infertility who are also on People. Yeah. Oh, I'm so happy for Kourtney. I'm so happy for Kourtney. It's just, you meet the love of your life, and it's like, I don't know if you guys saw the journey, but she was just never happy with Scott, and she met the love of her life, and I'm so happy for her. Yeah, so awesome. Well, guys, welcome. Remember, if the way to submit a comment is actually you have to subscribe. I think I have this for subscribers only. To send messages. So if you subscribe, you'll be able to send messages. But welcome. It's this National Infertility Month, guys. I'm so excited to do this live because there's so much good news in the air, so much positivity, so much. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Just so much. There's so much positivity. So many. Just such great news with people going through infertility. You got Simply Tanika, Uniquely Ursi with your babies, Earthside. Kourtney Kardashian is pregnant and in a place where she can share it with the world, right? Because you guys know you don't share it when usually it's hard because you got to wait. Everybody was kind of bashing about that. I'm like, that's the hardest thing when you go through infertility. You want to share your news. And I commend her because, you have to celebrate moment by moment. You can't wait until the very end. It's not healthy. And I'm so proud of her for sharing that moment. And their love is so beautiful. Anyway, I digress. So guys, today, the topic today are the different ways to have a baby. And I think just wanted to share with you how that came about, why I wanted to talk about that, because when you are going through this journey, and I'll start with my diagnosis because I think it will make sense why this conversation is important during National Infertility Month. I was diagnosed very quickly as having diminished ovarian reserve. I was a poor responder. My AMH was 0.1. I had a very high FSH of a 24. I was of advanced maternal age. I was perimenopausal. So it's like just you get all these things thrown at you based on, because usually what happens if you're watching this and you're not very familiar with the process is that there's tests that they do to be able to kind of assess where you are. And so that was my diagnosis. At the time, I wasn't open to receiving it. But looking back now in retrospect, considering my doctor's expertise being conventional IVF, now I understand and can honor why they mentioned to use donor eggs, go straight into donor egg. My doctors wanted to be successful. based on their treatment, based on what they were able to do. Now, if you guys follow my journey on my channel, you will see that I wasn't happy with that like most women. It really was discouraging to me, and I was just very depressed about it. But I was able to do research, and that's when I found a doctor who could help me try. So I wanted to frame that because some of you, maybe that's what you're facing, and you might be angry at the doctor. And it could be that maybe that doctor's treatment isn't right for you. And you could love your doctor. Like I love my doctors who are offering conventional IVF. I wouldn't say that there was any. It's just that they couldn't do the treatment. In fact, for one of the doctors who I switched into because during the pandemic, clinics were closed. So I had to move to a clinic that was still functioning during the pandemic. That doctor, I even asked that doctor after doing research if they could do mini IVF. And they said that their clinic's protocol had to be standard for everybody, that they'd have to go to the board to seek permission. I was able to have done a version of mini IVF if I traveled internationally. I looked at doing IVF in the Ukraine. I look at the war in the Ukraine and I'm sad because the Ukraine has been such a source of support for women with infertility, whether it's surrogacy, whether it is frozen embryos, whether it is advancement in technology when it comes to women infertility. I would say the Ukraine. And I was going to Kiev. I'd actually done a consultation with a doctor in Kiev, a wonderful doctor, to talk about the process, right? But that was at the time also when I found my doctor who could offer me the treatment that I needed, Dr. Frank Yelian of the Life IVF Center in Irvine, California. The joke my husband and I make is that if you want all your dreams to come true, you need to go to LA. I'm telling you, the women have it all. Most expensive zip code in the United States. Beautiful place. I wish I could afford to live there, but beautiful place, Irvine, where the clinic is. But yeah. So there's some of you who might be working with a doctor you love, but the treatment may not be right for you. That was the case for me. So I changed up. I did mini IVF. Now, I was at the point where we were now about to undergo that journey. And we had a consultation with Dr. Yelian. And that's when I learned, together with the research my husband did, for women of advanced maternal age, I was 43 at the time, there were some facts that I needed to face. I needed to face the fact that IVF was probably not going to work for me. And it's just a reality. We are born with all the eggs we have. Actually, at conception, we're conceived with all the eggs. I mean, those are the same eggs from when I was conceived. 45 years ago when I was conceived. Yeah, I've had these eggs for 45 years. 46, actually. Yeah, that just turned 46 this year. Same eggs. So I knew that, you know, that's why IVF was probably not going to work for me. Two, I also knew that I had diminished reserve as well. So I say this because there are women of my age who do not have diminished reserve. And if you want to know if you have diminished reserve or not, it's simple to do an antral follicle count. If you go to your OB, when they scan for follicles during your period, there's a number. Mine was diminished severely. Some women is not. Like I mentioned, Laura Law was a YouTube channel. She was of advanced maternal age, but she had a lot of eggs. She had 20 plus eggs each cycle. However, age. So you have the eggs, but the chances of getting a healthy one, right? So I had both those things happening to me. I wasn't Laura Laws. I wasn't the one person to do conventional 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. No, that was never going to be the case for me. And I knew that ahead of time. Okay, so just walking you through what my journey was like. Hubby and I sitting down before we started. So then it was like, are we willing to try? Now, why did we try? The reason we were willing to try was because my doctor had data. And in his clinic, he actually had women of my age. And one of the women, actually, not only did he mention her, because he does a free webinar every month and he talks about the different women and cases in his clinic, which is amazing because that's all data. And you need data, because if you're going to go through this, if you're going to endure all these failures in your pathway to baby, you need to know your doctor's data. You need to know who has been successful, what are the trends for women your age in that clinic. If you can't get that information, then I think it's too risky, in my opinion. So we got the data, and the data at my clinic was so transparent. Not only was it data, but there was actually a video about it. And there was a woman who had been successful. Her name was Lock-In. And if you go to my YouTube channel, you'll see that I post links to her video. Lock-In was, when I saw her video, I looked at her and I knew in my spirit, in my gut, you know how we have this instinct, ladies? I knew that I could try because of Lock-In. Now, Lock-In was successful. She had done multiple mini IVF cycles. She had more reserve than I did because she had more eggs than I did. But she was 45 and she had her son. And I saw her on Dr. Yelian's website and I just was like, okay. Because sometimes you just, I don't know, I work very well when I see other people who have similar diagnosis to me. Because one thing I learned about IVF is you can't compare yourself with other people because you don't know those other people. The other person could have a very different diagnosis. For example, somebody could be going through IVF because they're LGBTQIA and it's 2 women or 2 men starting a family. They may not, I mean, sometimes in those cases, they don't even have infertility. Others might have an issue like a blocked tube, but they have, their embryo rate is high, you know. So I remember when I started educating myself, it eliminated that stress of having to compare myself with other people who were also going through IVF, which was super helpful in keeping me focused. So anyway, yeah. So I sat down with Ricky and I remember our main goal as a couple, and this is where you have to sit down when you plan. You need to talk to each other and find out if you want a take-home baby. Oh, I know Tanika's little one is so perfect, Mrs. M. Oh, Mrs. M, welcome. Yes, Mrs. M. Tanika's baby is adorable. Oh my gosh, my heart. And so I had to, you know, we had to sit down and have that. And I remember I was sitting down having this conversation with my husband, and I wasn't 100% there. I wasn't 100% engaged in it. I want you to know the truth. You're not going to make these plans with your sane mind, like super confident and happy about it. But I promise you, when you write things down, when you put them out to the universe, things happen. So we developed a pathway to baby. That's why on my channel, you notice I talk about it. I created the pathway to baby because I truly believe that it's a pathway. You can't be told how to have a baby. You have to grow in your path to it. And there's something that happens spiritually when you grow into things that's very different than when you're offered things or told to do things. And I know this from my own experience. I speak from what I know. But we wrote it down. So we knew that we were going to get a baby in this house. Well, it wasn't in this house because I didn't want to purchase a house. I was listen, when I tell you, when you're going through infertility, even just look, I mean, you don't even want a house. You're like, why is there a house? It's going to be quiet. And so this was actually later, you know, but yeah. So we wrote the pathway. And the pathway for us, and just to share with you the ways to have a baby, because for us, we knew we were going to have a baby regardless. We were going to bring joy and laughter in our presence and our energy. We knew that was going to happen. It was just the path to it. So the pathway for us was own egg. And the intention was that we were going to use the data because now we had hope from Dr. Frank Yelian of the Life IVF Center, who specializes in older women as well as younger ones, but he does have data for older women. He has helped older women conceive with their own eggs, have their own genetic child. The probability at the clinic was 1 out of 8 for my age, 1 out of 6, 1 out of 8 embryos was going to be normal. Not that 1 out of 8 like embryos produced. No. The probability was 1 out of 8, 1 out of 6. Every time. Every time. So that meant that my husband explained to me that I could get lucky and get the right embryo the first cycle of IVF. I could get it the 6th cycle, the 8th cycle, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, or I could not get it at all. And so what we then did was we budgeted and planned for 8 cycles. And they had packages. So this is where you can actually talk to your clinic if you do decide to hunt for the golden egg. If you are watching this and you want a chance with your own genetic egg, and you found out, the probability from your doctor, you then use that information to plan. And so, and then you start to kind of look for the perks. What are the specials? What are the offers? What are the packages? And I remember my clinic at the time had this package. And so we did a package deal. And then I also was able to look into my insurance. My insurance wasn't able to cover it, but they did like a reimbursement because it was out of network. And so we looked into that. And then I budgeted I looked at, the probability of me. And at the time, now it doesn't happen, but at the time I would at least have an egg every month. And I remember, listen, right now, if I could have an egg every month, the things I could do, Jesus Christ, if I had an egg every month. Anyway, but at the time I did. And so to be safe, we budgeted on, okay, what if an egg was retrieved every time? Just one. And so we planned, we looked at flight tickets, everything that needed money, lunches when I was there, hotel rooms, Airbnb. We wrote a rough budget on it. And that's when we actually did the Dave Ramsey. So we started cutting things that we knew that weren't necessary. And remember, when you have the desire and the drive to have a baby, you'll be surprised at what you cut. So nails, Starbucks, we're career people. And so there was these things that we did every morning just to make our way, but we cut eating out, eating in more, cooking, trying to eat more healthy. And so she'll would do just some of the tips, but that's what we did to prepare us for the pathway to baby. So on egg was first, the treatment was Mini IVF, and we were going to do 1 out of 6, 1 out of 8 cycles, and that was supposed to be it. The only reason we went to 12 cycles was because the embryo we got on our 6th cycle happened to be a healthy one. Did we get other embryos? Absolutely. Some of them did not make it. Some of them arrested on the 3rd day. If you're interested in that journey, I have all 12 and the results, all 12 IVF cycles that you could take a look at. But that was our plan. So the plan was then, if we went through the data for Dr. Yelian's clinic for my age, the 1 out of 8, and we were not successful, we then decided for financial reasons that we were then going to consider doing donor egg. So finances was a big thing for us. If we're seeing that we're running out of money and I had tried with my own eggs and I wasn't successful, then we were going to do donor egg. Was I open to donor egg at the time we did this pathway conversation? No. I was just sitting there with Ricky, just, going with it. But I was not open to it. I will tell you, I was like, no, no. Because remember, you have to go through the journey. It's a process, But we had the plan. We knew that we needed to get a baby here. And from all the options, then we decided donor was going to be the second one. A donor egg with Ricky's little guys. And I was going to carry the pregnancy if I could carry. Because remember, also at the time, this was my first pregnancy. Baba was my first pregnancy. I didn't know if I could carry either, because there's some infertility, which is related to not being able to carry a baby. But that was what we had just written down. Okay. We then moved into, because the YouTube community had educated me and women were so transparent with their stories. I remember that there was women who had shared about their inability to carry. Kim Kardashian was one of them. I remember her when she was going through her pregnancy with North, and then she wasn't able to carry, and then she used a surrogate. And then I looked into other everyday people that had actually also needed to use a surrogate, including videos from my clinic, the Life IVF Center, women who had used surrogate. So then the plan was, if we did the testing, and there was this testing for like clotting factors and blood work that they can do to let you know if you are at risk and either offer you the medication or let you know that you're risking that embryo. That's the great thing about medicine these days, is that it can be proactive in telling you what the future might look like. And I remember watching she's a European doctor. I'll probably put a link to her video, but she specializes in miscarriages, and I watched the videos about what causes them. And she was also a huge reason in why we did PGTA as well as Phil and Alex, because she specializes in miscarriage. She's in the UK. Her whole clinic just specializes in women who have back-to-back miscarriages. And I knew she mentioned clotting factors, blood work, and I knew then that I needed to get tested for those. And it was out of pocket. But remember, in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm spending this money out of pocket, but it's saving my precious embryo if I was to have it. So we then said, if the blood work came that I needed help to carry the pregnancy, that we would then do surrogacy. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I'm going to look it up, guys, because there's two types of surrogacy I wanted you to be aware of. And I'm just going to look up at some of my notes here that I had written in my journal, in my fertility journal, just to kind of let you know. So there is traditional surrogacy. This is the surrogacy that has been going on for many, many years before things evolve. And in traditional surrogacy, the surrogate eggs are used. So it's using the surrogate's eggs with the little guys of maybe, being, with the little guys. And then, so that's traditional surrogacy. We were not going to do traditional surrogacy if I was not able to carry, because our intention was, if we had an embryo, it would already be me and Ricky together. So we would not need traditional surrogacy. And then there is, I believe, the surrogacy which we're open to using, which is gestational surrogacy. So in the pathway to baby, as you're knowing ways to options, if you have clotting factors or you, for some reason, you can't carry, the research I was able to find was gestational surrogacy, meaning that the surrogate carries you and your partner's embryo. Kim Kardashian used gestational surrogacy for her and Kanye's babies after North, because she couldn't carry. And then there's other types of surrogacy here. Altruistic surrogacy is, just a definition where, like, that type of surrogacy, that the surrogate mother is not compensated. But my understanding is that in most of these cases that the surrogate is compensated. There's commercial surrogacy where the woman is paid a fee. But those are not the important ones, because really this is the pathway to baby. So I just thought I'd share that with you so that you guys know the different types. So as we were kind of journaling this information, guys, on pathway to baby, I was literally writing this information down. And so that was the deal. We're going to do gestational, not traditional surrogacy. And we would deal with the financial repercussion of that later, because this was creating the plan. Because we had a plan for the IVF, the Mini IVF Cycles, and I'll break down cost in a minute here so you guys can be clear on what you're looking at, roughly, probably. And then surrogacy, we were going to worry about that financial planning if the need arose, because that was going to be a while before we did that. We were doing embryo banking, which would buy us time, because we were not like trying to find the egg and then transferring it right away. We stopped doing that after the third cycle. It's like, I'm not doing that anymore. I am embryo banking first, testing before anything goes into my body. I was willing to be patient. I was not going to go through that again, because there's nothing as hard as having transfer failures. I mean, you retrieve these eggs, you make the embryos, and you transfer, and it's failure. It just was too hard on me, too hard on my body. So we decided to maximize everything and embryo bank, and then do testing, and then focus on transfers later. So then after we had dead set on that, so up to this point, just to recap, own egg, how many cycles, all the expenses, flights, hotels, da da da. And this was based on the data from my doctor. Your doctor will give you the data, the probability of how many cycles it will take for you to be successful, not based on hypotheses, but based on his clinic, based on people he has worked with who have your diagnosis. That's what you need. And if you can find that person and talk to them, even better. I was able to find that person, lock in. She was at the Life IVF Center. She had her baby boy at 45, and she did embryo banking, and I followed that lead. Okay, then it was now, second thing we've talked about this afternoon is if you find out, well, it's important to find out if it's your first pregnancy, if you can carry it, because you don't want to lose embryos because of a situation that you could have avoided. So you don't want to risk it if you've not carried a pregnancy before. I know I needed to, because I just didn't know. And I researched on what miscarriage was. And I'll put a video on the woman who has a clinic in Europe about miscarriage. Wonderful documentary, talks about the reasons. And I realized that the main reasons was, abnormality. So women who are older, or even sometimes women who are a little bit younger, under 40, sometimes not all their eggs are normal. And so that causes miscarriage. Then there's physical things, like if you go through abortions and you get, you have fibroids and they scrape them out and it affects your ability for the embryo to transplant. There's also clotting factors as well. So we did the testing to figure that out. And I did not have DNCs in the past. No abortions, nothing like that, no fibroids that were removed and had scarring. So we, lucky for me, that ended up working out. But if it had not, then we were going to do surrogacy, and we were going to do gestational surrogacy. Because traditional surrogacy is using the surrogate's own eggs. Gestational is when they carry you and your partners. So that was that. Okay, then if that did not work, or for some reason, if we use the surrogate, if that did not work with our own eggs as a couple, then our next pathway or way to have a baby was actually, at that point, embryo donation. If worst case scenario, we would try another egg, donor cycle and keep trying. But if for some reason the donor we decided to do embryo donation. So you might be asking, so why did we not do adoption? Oh, man, don't you hate it when people tell you just adopt? So many children out in the world, just adopt. And that's true. But, when you're going through infertility, guys, that's so insensitive. You can't just adopt, It's not easy. You need to get there. People just don't understand when they keep throwing that at women who have infertility. What do you guys think? Let me know what you're thinking as I'm talking. I know that there's a few of you out there watching, but don't you hate it when they throw adoption? Just adopt. But we did think about embryo adoption as our next pathway. And embryo donation is the new way of adopting a baby. So it's carrying your own adopted baby. Because what it is I'll tell you actually what happens in IVF. You guys know that sometimes people who undergo IVF, they may not have diminished reserve, or they may not have age-related infertility. And so there's some women who have excessive embryos, and they may not want 10, 20 children. So they donate these embryos to families that are in need. And if you guys watch my video on doctors, Dr. Keenan in Tennessee, he does embryo adoption, and he's a spiritual doctor, he's a Christian doctor. And he believes that every embryo has a chance for life. And actually, I'll weave in cost as I talk into this. You can do embryo donation. I think it's only $3,000 for an embryo. And so for some couples going through infertility, and the nice thing about that is for us was that you got to carry, you carry the adopted child. I know that that's a good option as a pathway to baby for men who are going through infertility, because there are some men who are going through infertility. But for some men, it is uncomfortable for their partner to use a sperm donor. Not all men, but so they would prefer embryo donation. I know some couples who've used that, or who do not care about a genetic link to the child, because not everybody feels it's necessary to have a genetic connection to the baby. And so embryo donation is carrying your own adopted child. So it's an adopted child because it's a child made of an embryo and a little guy from a couple, usually left over from people's IVFs, where, like, I know there was a documentary I was watching where a woman had 7 boys. She did IVF and genetic testing, and all 7 of her embryos were boys. She had 3 boys, and then the 4 boys were in the fridge, and then she was able to donate them. So stories like that. And Dr. Keenan does embryo donation. And so that was going to be our other pathway. And then outside of embryo donation, then it was looking, if that did not work for us for any reason at all. I have a feeling that that would have ended up working for us anyway, because it was $3,000 for a cycle to do embryo donation. So it's very cost effective. And then if that wasn't going to work, we were then going to do fostering to then see if we could adopt. And in our research, actually, fostering is a lot easier. The hard thing about fostering, though, is that you do have to, the children are with you temporarily. It's great because you get to parent. And it's amazing because it's such a gift to be able to parent children in need. And then the children will then go back to their household when things are situated with whatever it is that they're facing. And so I figured that that would be a good way to be able to assess if adoption was right for us. And then obviously our last and final pathway to baby was adoption. And I'll go through the cost of each so that you guys know. Adoption is actually quite expensive. Adoption is more expensive than IVF. And it's a more rigorous process. So they do checks and it takes a long time. And to adopt an infant, I think it's about probably $20,000. There is a different price when it comes to the baby's race from where I live, I think, which is very bizarre to me. And also international adoptions are cheaper if you adopt internationally in a different country. But we're looking at probably $20,000 at the minimum to adopt in the United States and higher for an infant or a toddler. It is a lot easier, obviously, to adopt children who are older, who are teenagers or 11, 12, 13. But for most people, they want the gift to be able to raise the child, which is why adopting an infant or a toddler is preferable for many people if you're looking at pathway to baby. So those are the pathways to baby. So now very quickly, let's take a look at cost. Since it's National Infertility Month, just wanted to share my journey. Hopefully, welcome. It's helping you guys a little bit. Mrs. M commented here, I know it's lunchtime and you guys are busy and it's the weekend of the Juneteenth. Here's to freedom. And Mrs. M said, oh, and Tanika's little one is so perfect. Yes, so perfect. But now let's move into cost as we wrap up this live today. I'm so excited. Now, guys, once I wrap up the live, you know what I'm going to do? I am so excited because Kourtney Kardashian shared her news. And what was funny is, Kourtney's pregnant. It's all over Instagram. And I commented on there. And it's so funny because on the People post, and my goodness. And then you guys won't believe this, but it was just a comment. I didn't think anything of it. And then I got like over 800 likes. And I also got people going through infertility who were posting on there, talking about their journey because of Kourtney should know how much hope she's given people. But Kourtney's journey, as you guys know, was she froze her eggs. Unfortunately, when she thought they were not strong enough because she's of advanced maternal age, over 40. And she was sharing her journey, so she was able to get pregnant. But so to wrap it up, and I'm going to actually comment and give some support to the women on the chat who responded to what I had to say. I mentioned how I did 12 IVF cycles and how, it was a journey. And I think some people got a source of hope from that. So to wrap it up, I'm going to tell you a little bit about costs so you guys know just roughly what it cost 3-4 years ago. And you can kind of have an idea as you plan. So so when we did conventional IVF, at the time when I was doing conventional IVF, it was $25,000. It was a private clinic, and at the time, my insurance was able to cover it. I'm looking. Oh, it's Baba's balloons for his birthday. Yeah. So the clinic that I used, because it was a clinic that my insurance was able to cover. So I did not do a conventional cycle with them because it was during the pandemic and they had recommended egg donor. So I still wanted to try with my own eggs. But they closed. And then I was then able to attempt a conventional cycle with another doctor. But that doctor, they had like a co-share, like that process where you walk away guaranteed with a baby. They had that plan. You pay the money, if it's 20 grand or 22,000, but you're guaranteed to walk away with the baby. But I didn't qualify because I was of advanced age. I didn't qualify to be a part of that share plan. So, but I had the insurance coverage for that 25,000 that they were going to use for the cycle if they did not cancel it. So I did the conventional cycle. You guys know from watching my videos, my eggs literally fried. Like when I tell you, ooh, you got to take care of your eggs. You got to take care of your eggs if you're over 40. Listen, they are 40 years old. They do not need all that medication. Unless you have like amazing reserve, like Laura Laws, who's over 40 and had like 20 plus. Don't $5,000 worth of medications out of pocket. And they could not even retrieve. So I had 3 that you have to mature 3 for them to retrieve. So they did not retrieve, and that cycle just went to, they reverted it into an IUI. And I remember just thinking to myself, oh my gosh, that's the youngest my eggs will ever be at that point. Like, why didn't they just try? But anyway, that's when I knew protocol was important. And make a long story short, you guys know my story. Then we went to Mini IVF. Now, the cost of Mini IVF for us at the time, because with Mini IVF, it's minimal stimulation, minimal. It is not conventional. They're not trying to mature lots of eggs. Trying to mature the eggs you have. And even if you have lots of eggs, if you've done conventional and it didn't work for you, could be that your body's just picky. Your eggs just would respond, or you may not need to culture that many eggs either. I do hear that with Mini IVF, even if you have a lot of eggs, it helps you have healthier embryos, actually, healthier eggs that you retrieve. So if you tried conventional and it's not working for you and you have a lot of eggs, I think you should try Mini IVF and see if a gentler treatment is what your body needs. It only takes 1. You only need 1 to make a baby. You don't need 20. And so Mini IVF was very cost effective. My clinic was charging per cycle at the time about close to $4,000, $3,800, $4,000. And they would do like a reduced rate. Like if you were to do the next cycle, it would be at a reduced rate. And they would offer packages. Like if you did a 3-cycle package, 2-cycle package. And I'd encourage you to explore those financial options ahead of time, because like for me, I knew my probability. I knew that I was not going to get a baby probably the first cycle. I mean, if I did, I'd be very happy and, walk away. But I just, in my, I was like, and if you're confident that you might be able to get it earlier than the predicted data, then pay cycle by cycle. But we did the 3-cycle package first. And then we did cycle by cycle until we got Baba, the embryo, at the 6th cycle. But the reason I did cycle was because my clinic was able to, my insurance did a reimbursement up to a certain % out of network. So for the paperwork and stuff, it was just easier to do it that way. But I think if you're of advanced age and you see your probabilities like 1 out of 8, 1 out of 6, then you can do packages to save you money, right? Because you're probably going to, and if you do have the blessing of getting the baby ahead of time, trust me, you're not going to complain. You'll have your baby and you'll be so happy. And maybe you could revert that money for a transfer at that point, right? So anyway, we did that, and that was about $3,500, $3,800. And then obviously plane costs, for us, because we travel, we did outside monitoring. Outside monitoring was covered in the state where I lived, because it was under my regular healthcare. When you monitor, it's under your OB regular healthcare stuff. So we didn't have to pay extra out of that. I think Baba's awake. Yeah, and I'm getting close, 10 more minutes, I think. And Yeah, need to get his lunch ready. But so that was the cost, and then flight and everything. So we budgeted for that. The cost of a surrogate is about $60,000 for a surrogate, at least from what I've seen. Now, it could be cheaper. Some doctors, like my clinic, they can help you get a surrogate. You could get an altruistic surrogate who's doing it just to help, but I think there's a cost involved. So surrogacy is expensive, but it is worth it if you cannot carry. And in my opinion, because for me, genetic child is more important than anything. I don't mind surrogacy if I had to use one, because that would be my child anyway, DNA wise. You'd not carry the pregnancy, but it's your child anyway. I mean, look at Chicago, Kim's little girl, Chicago. I mean, Chi is a mini version of Kim Kardashian, and she's beautiful. I mean, anyway, I speak as a woman who, you can tell my passion for genetic children. And I'm so happy I have Baba. I just wanted one. I just wanted my full BA, my little embryo that could. Yeah, so surrogacy. But remember, don't quote me on that. Check with your clinic to see. So 60,000. Embryo donation. If you decide to carry your adopted child, so you're carrying your adopted child. So you're doing adoption, but you're doing embryo donation. You're carrying the adopted child. So your husband's little ones. Embryo donation, I'm sorry, is like if you have infertility both as a couple and you choose to adopt, or you have made the decision to adopt a child, but you want to experience pregnancy. Dr. Keenan does that in Tennessee, and as well as other clinics, I believe. Embryo donation, now it's a new form of adoption, the new age way to have a child. And it's only $3,000. Last I checked, only $3,000. And you're pregnant and you carry your baby. Really good cost-effective options, much cheaper than $20,000 for adoption for a child that's earthside, toddler, infant. It's $20,000 plus, and the background check and everything they do to make sure that you're a stable environment for the child, including being married and all. I mean, I'm like, when did being married mean that you would be a better parent? I never knew how that was. There's a lot of single people out there that make excellent parents and support systems. So I just thought that was really weird. It's outdated. But anyway, there's embryo donation, and you get to experience the pregnancy. And then there's fostering, and then there's adoption, like I mentioned before, 20,000 plus. International adoptions are cheaper. You can adopt in the Ukraine or in Europe, Russia. You can also adopt in Africa, Ethiopia, East Africa, most parts of Africa. They have orphanages there that you could adopt, and it's much cheaper. So So Baba is awake. I'm gonna get his lunch, and I'm just gonna continue in this energy, guys. It's been just amazing. It's been amazing so far during National Infertility Month. And I'm gonna hop back on to these comments after I get Baba's lunch going. Because like I mentioned to you guys this morning, the best news ever, Kourtney Kardashian is expecting her first baby with Travis Barker. Age-related infertility. She had tried to freeze her eggs, and they were too weak. And then what I did was I actually this morning commented and shared a glimpse of my story in the people section, because people and all these women and people were so supportive and kind, and some shared their journey. And so I know some people had talked about them doing cycles, and so I'm going to go out there after I make Baba's lunch and see if I can share some hope with people or connect them and just give them a different perspective. But it's National Infertility Month. Thank you so much, guys. Next week, I think the final topic I will cover, I think we're going to be wrapping up. I think it's going to be our second to last. Let me take a look at the calendar. I'm going to do one more live. I think I have 2 more lives left. Let me know what you guys want to hear about, but in the comments, let me know. Excuse me. Ooh. But yeah, I'm so excited. Tanika, Uniquely Ursi, Kourtney Kardashian. I mean, National Infertility Month. All this great news. And I hope that if you're watching this, you have hope and you keep fighting and you have your pathway to baby and you're clear and you're educated about the process, and pray and have good perspective and energy. I know it's hard to hear good news. I know for some of you, even just seeing that on your news feed triggers something. But please know that it's okay to celebrate the victories of people's pain. And it's also okay for you to grieve at the same time, but it's also okay for you to have hope. And Failure is just information. So let me know what you guys want to talk next. I think somebody said they wanted me to cover everything about IVF, just one IVF 101, what it is, what it does, and how to prepare for it. And so I think I will probably cover that in my next live. And yeah, but let me know what you want me to cover for my last live of the month. June is National Infertility Month. And thank you so much for watching, guys. I know there's 2 people in the chat who've been watching. Mrs. M commented about Tanika's little one. I love these lives. It's such a great way to talk. So I'm going to hop back on Instagram and address Courtney Kardashian's post responses. And I'm going to, before that, get Bubba's lunch. It's a beautiful day. It's amazing. It's summer. Let's all take a deep breath. And I wish you guys a great rest of your afternoon. All right. Bye, guys.